the Reverend Nelson D. Rivers III. I am proud to have been born in Venice Point, South Carolina. So 50 years later, 150 years, come January 1st, we will celebrate the Emancipation Proclamation becoming the law. The Civil Rights, the War Act that freed the slaves, according to what was written in our history. And although people make light of the Emancipation Proclamation, people don't recognize it. If you're from South Carolina, when you hear about 40 acres and a mule, in January of 1865, in Savannah, Georgia, General Stanton, Secretary Stanton, General Grant, and Sherman signed what was then called Public Law 15. And Public Law 15 said in summary that all of the land from Amelia Island, Florida, up to just below Georgetown, South Carolina, would be divided into 40-acre lots and given to the freed slaves.
That's right.
And from January 15 until April 14 of 1865, we owned all the land from Amelia Island to Charleston. And for 90 days, we were the richest people in America. For 90 days.
That's right.
Then Lincoln was killed, Johnson became president, sold us out, made a deal with the South, and the rest is history.
That's right. Tell it.
And the lie that's been told is that we never had the land. We did have the land. The Lord has been good, the gospel is strong, and liberation theology. And if you are not hearing liberation theology preached, that means that the gospel is not being preached. The gospel is about liberation. The gospel is about the liberating move of Jesus Christ himself to embrace others. He was about the other. In fact, they killed him because he was hanging out with the other. The lowlifes, the scum, the dregs of the earth, those who could not go into the temple because they were blind, woman, or because they were different. And because of that, he hung out with the people everybody hated. And because of that, they killed him. God said to his servant Moses, go tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And as my friend Rabbi said, that then he became Moses, the president of Brickmakers Union #1. When he told them, we're not going to make the bricks without straw.
There you go.
If you are not going to give us straw, we can't make the bricks, Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said, make it harder on them because they're lazy and they're shiftless.
Isn't that something?
And Moses went and talked to his God and said, Pharaoh's not going to let me go without some blood being shed. And God said, so be it, blood shall be shed. We can relate because in South Carolina, where they fly the flag in front of the Capitol, they refused to let the slaves go until some blood was shed. 600,000 lives lost through bloodshed because the oppressor refused to stop oppressing without blood being shed. I'm blessing the gentleman for singing, Sam Cooke's.
Yes.
A change is going to come in. That the truth of the matter is, change has come. It has come to South Carolina. I've lived long enough now to see change come to South Carolina. I witnessed it with my own eyes. I've ridden all over the state. When I was 17 years old, my daddy, Nelson Rivers Jr., got me a chauffeur's license. Brother Riley, somehow, I got to be a taxi driver on a safety cab owned by Henry Smith. And I was riding on I-26. And the highway patrolman stopped me and said, nigga, where you going? And he said, boy, show me your driver's license. I took out my driver's license, he snatched it, and then he read my name and threw the license and the ticket back in my face and nigga, if I get you driving like this again, I'm going to lock you up or shoot you. And I waited till he drove off and I cussed him out with all I was worth. Then the other day they stopped me on the highway here in South Carolina. The highway patrolman walked up, asked me to roll my window down. I got power windows down. And he said, sir, may I see your driver's license? I gave him my driver's license, looked at it and said, Mr. Rivers, what's your hurry? I said, I'm not in a hurry, I just didn't know you were working this part of the road. He went back to write my ticket. He brought it back to me and gently, with great courtesy, said, Mr. Rivers, here's your license, please have a good day. And before he walked away, I started laughing so loud, I know he thought I was crazy. And I know he wondered what's wrong with me. I said, somebody changed my name from Nigger Boy to Mr. Rivers. Change has come. In the words of Isaiah, somebody need to say something. The great Reverend Dr. Benjamin Lawson Hooks said that you don't have any deacons like this in your church. And I don't have any deacons like this, but he had some in his church. And he said a deacon who cussed all the time. to be so embarrassing, he took him out on the boat fishing and said, I need to get you to quit cussing. He says, it's really beneath a man with your education and cussing all the time. Why don't you clean up your language and stop all that profanity? And while they were trying to explain it, the pastor didn't have much fishing skill, and a fish hit the line, and he reached over the boat to grab the fish. He missed the fish, and he got the hook in his finger. He looked at the deacon and said, and the deacon looked at him. He looked at the deacon. The deacon looked at him. The pastor finally said, somebody will say something. When nobody else will say it, somebody will say something. When the Tea Party takes on the guise of the White Citizens Council and call it a party, somebody ought to say something. When the governor of the state can make mockery out of folk who work hard, and yet she sits there and watches folk rack and crack and hack the security system of the state, and her solution is we need to hire 24-hour guards to watch every computer in South Carolina. Somebody ought to say something about that. When a member of the House of Representatives of South Carolina called the President of the United States a liar and said he was not racist, somebody call him what he is. Somebody say something about that. Somebody needs to say something. When folks say that women cannot preach from pulpits in South Carolina because of what Paul said, you ought to ask him, in whose name do you pledge? In whose name do you get baptized? In whose name do you preach? Do you preach in Paul's name or Jesus' name? Tell me what did Jesus say. Somebody ought to say something. But folk are more concerned about what you're doing in your bedroom than what they're doing in Congress. Somebody ought to say something about it. Somebody needs to say something. And so I'm so glad that you have decided to take this encouragement. The wind is at our back now. We're not going in the headwind anymore. The wind is at our backs. I've seen a miracle. I live, my mom is with him. My mom is 89. Mama's 89. And mama is voted for a black man to be president twice. And he won both times. What kind of mess is that? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? The wind is at our backs. We don't need to be scared anymore. The wind is at our backs. Why are you waiting? What are you hesitating for? The people have spoken. They hear you. Don't you know in South Carolina, 800,000 people voted for Obama? In South Carolina, all of them weren't black. We don't have 800,000 black folk voting. The wind is at our backs. We need to get serious. This is our season. The window will not stay open forever. But the window is open now. Don't cry. Don't bemoan. Don't belittle. Do your job. Organize. Organize and organize. I can't tell that. But I can tell you about the slave named John, the former slave. He was still under his master. And he was good with the whip. And he was taking the master to town one day, probably from Venice Point to downtown Charleston. And he was showing off the whip, and every now and then he would just take the whip and show how good he was. And there was a bumblebee hovering over some flowers, and he said, I'm going to show him something. He took the whip and he popped the bumblebee, split him in half, and didn't touch the flower. The master raised one eyebrow and said, John, you're pretty good with that whip. And John, in his false mind, said, yes, sir, I do all right. Went a little bit further, there was a horsefly on the back of the horse. And just as he was about to strike the horse, the man took the whip, and again he hit the horsefly. Didn't even scratch the horse. He went a little bit further, and the master said, man, you're really good with that whip. Then he came up to a tree, and there was a hornet's nest in the tree. And the master said, John, you see that nest in that tree? John said, yes, sir. He said, why don't you take your whip and snatch that hornet's nest out of the tree? John looked at the tree, looked at the master, looked at the tree, looked at the master. Said, no, sir, I don't reckon I do that. She is organized. When you're organized, folk don't mess with you so much. But when you're by yourself, they pick you off one by one. In South Carolina, folk know they need representation, but they're afraid because folk have convinced them for so long that if they speak out, something bad will happen. You need a dog so big and so bad and so He give you oranges. But if you want juice, you got to do the squeezing. The Lord has given us oranges, but we got to do the squeezing. Now I end with Dr. King, one of the speeches I frankly had not heard. Heard him the other day, and he got up and gave one of his shortest sermons or messages. He said, I recognize the day that I've been given this award, and I want to thank you with a reminder with 3 little words. And the 3 little words were all, here, and now. He said the Negroes would ask, why do you push? Why don't you wait? Why don't you wait until time is right to get your rights? He said, I came by to tell you I got just 3 things to tell you. All, here, and now. He said, how many of my rights do I want? I want them all. I want all of them. I want some of them this week and some of them next year. I want them all right now. How many you got? That's what I want. I want all of them. How many rights do our workers want in South Carolina? All of them. Not some this year, not some next year. All of them. Where do we want them? Here. Where in South Carolina? The home. They laugh at us around the country. I'm blessed to travel all over the world, all over the state, all over the nation. And they think that when they come here, they can treat workers like they want to because won't nobody do anything about it. The time has come to say, you will not do it here. And then when do we want it? We want it right now. Right now.
Right now.
Today, right now. One of the things I'm challenged with in the NAACP is getting folks to complain. Complain! Don't let people tell you not to complain. Complain some more! Complain! They will not change if you don't complain. Complain! When they get tired, complain some more. When they get sick of complaining, complain some more. I call it blind Bartimaeus. When they told Bartimaeus, shut up, because Jesus is walking by, holler some more. I want to see. How are you going to know I want to see if I don't say something? We need to complain. They don't believe it because we suffer silently. The time has come for somebody to say something. When January 1st comes, let it dawn a new year and a new assertion and a new aggressiveness by us, that we will use the Word of God to do what God has called us to do. God has shown throughout His Word, from Genesis to Revelation, He is the God of justice. He said, I picked Abraham not because he was smart, because I know he would be just. He told Solomon, I answered your prayer not because of your holiness, it's because you said you want to administer justice. He told Jeremiah, I'm going to come back not because you call my name, but because I want justice. He told Micah to tell my people I will do 3 things from them: to do justice, to love mercy, walk humbly with thy God. And some people don't believe the Old Testament, so give them the New Testament and give them the Son of God. That Jesus said to the Pharisees and the scribes when they were challenging him by hanging out with the poor people and the publicans and the tax collectors and the lowlifes, he said, you are confused. You tithe as you should, but you ignore the weightier matters of the law: justice, righteousness, and mercy. The record of my God is clear. He is the God of justice. His proclaimers, his preachers, and his prophets must be about justice, or they need to find another line of vocation. The reason we get to preach is because the one we preach about died and lived again for justice. As I come to tell you, the time has come. The wind is at our back. You need to have them say about you. We don't mess with the union in South Carolina anymore. Why? They is organized.
On behalf of AC Superstars Production, we enjoyed this and hope you did. Thank you.